They say summer is the season of freedom, long nights, road trips, campfires, and late-night swims. But for some people, summer brought something else, something darker, something that still haunts them. In the first story, a group of friends visits a forgotten town they found marked on an old map. It seems abandoned at first, until they start disappearing one by one, and the last person left hears voices whispering her name from inside the walls. The second story follows two childhood friends on a late-night bike ride to the edge of town. They find a cabin with lights on and dinner on the table, but no one lives there. When they try to leave, the road behind them has vanished, and something in the woods is watching them. And the third story, a lakeside trip turns into a nightmare. Four guys go canoeing on a lake that doesn't exist on modern maps. When they return to shore, something has followed them. One by one, they start to vanish, leaving only wet footprints and static-filled nightmares behind. These stories are real, and the scariest one is saved for last. So get comfortable or don't, because these true summertime horror stories might just ruin your favorite season. Story 1, The Whispering Shore. It was the last summer we'd all spend together. The summer before life pulled us apart, scattering us like driftwood across distant shores. Me, Evan, Katie, and Sean had been inseparable since grade school, and the prospect of adulthood loomed heavy over us, casting long shadows on our sunny afternoons. Determined to squeeze every drop of adventure from those final carefree days, we decided on a road trip to Hidden Cove, a secluded beach town we'd only heard whispers about. Hidden Cove was named well, nearly invisible on maps, accessible only by winding roads that twisted like veins through dense forests. It was rumored to be breathtakingly beautiful and notoriously hard to find, as though the cove itself hid from the outside world. We were thrilled by the challenge, excited by the promise of a summer none of us would ever forget. We piled into Evan's old Jeep, music blasting, windows down, sunlight flickering through towering trees. For hours we wound through back roads, guided only by vague directions and instinct. Finally, just as daylight began fading, we saw it, a rusted sign barely readable through layers of grime and ivy. Hidden Cove, welcome home. Home. It felt oddly unsettling. Driving down the narrow dirt road, we arrived at a quaint cluster of weathered cottages overlooking the ocean. The air was rich with salt, tinged faintly with something else, a metallic scent I couldn't place. An elderly woman named Hazel ran the cabins. Her skin was leathery, deeply lined by decades of sea winds, and her eyes held a strange, faraway sadness. She handed Evan the keys, her hands trembling slightly. "Mind the shore," she warned softly, her voice little more than a whisper. "What do you mean?" Katie asked, smiling nervously. Hazel looked out over the sea, her gaze unfocused. "It speaks at night. Don't listen." Sean laughed nervously, but Hazel didn't join him. She turned away silently, disappearing into her cottage. We exchanged glances, uneasy but determined not to let superstition dampen our spirits. The cabin was rustic, smelling faintly of damp wood and ocean mist. We unpacked quickly, eager to explore before night fell completely. The beach stretched endlessly, golden sands untouched, waves whispering softly, beckoning us closer. As darkness settled, we built a fire, toasting marshmallows, our laughter blending with the rhythmic waves. Everything felt perfect until Katie froze, mid-laugh, eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the firelight. "Did you hear that?" she asked, voice shaking slightly. We fell silent, listening intently. The waves rolled steadily, rhythmic, but underneath was something else. A quiet, steady whispering, soft and indistinct, floating gently across the sand. "Probably just wind," Sean said dismissively, though he shifted uncomfortably. "Wind doesn't whisper," Katie argued quietly, pulling her sweatshirt tighter around herself. The whispers grew slightly louder, still indistinct, floating from the shoreline. Evan stood slowly, grabbing a flashlight. "I'll check it out," he said, voice falsely confident. "Don't go," Katie pleaded softly, anxiety tightening her voice. Evan waved her off reassuringly, walking cautiously toward the shore. We watched as his flashlight beam danced over sand and rocks. For a moment nothing moved, nothing appeared, only the waves crashing softly. Then suddenly the flashlight fell silent and dark. "Evan?" I called anxiously. "You okay?" No answer. Panic surged. Sean stood abruptly, heart pounding. "I'm going after him." "Don't," Katie pleaded again, tears welling in her eyes. But Sean ran toward the shore, disappearing into the darkness. Silence followed. Deep, oppressive silence. Then moments later Sean shouted, terrified, voice distant, echoing strangely over the waves. "Help! Please, I found Evan, he's not—" His voice abruptly cut off. Katie screamed, and we bolted toward the shoreline, hearts hammering wildly. The sand beneath our feet felt wrong, shifting strangely, as though resisting our steps. "Evan? Sean?" I called desperately, fear choking my voice. Only silence answered. Katie sobbed softly, clutching my arm. "We have to call someone, the police." But the shoreline whispered louder now, clearer. Voices layered upon each other, indistinct but urgent, as though desperate to be understood. "Listen," Katie whispered, voice shaking violently. "They're saying something." I strained, heart racing, pulse roaring in my ears. Then from somewhere deep within the whispers, I heard it. Evan's voice, faint yet unmistakable, pleading desperately, "Help me, help me." "Katie," I gasped, heart sinking with dread. "That's Evan." "No," she cried softly, shaking her head. "That's impossible. Evan," I shouted, stepping toward the sea, desperate to reach him. But as my foot touched the wet sand, something seized my ankle, cold, powerful, dragging me sharply forward. I screamed, clawing desperately at the sand, fighting the invisible grip. Katie grabbed my wrists, pulling frantically, her face twisted in fear. "Hold on." But the whispers rose louder, deafening, surrounding us. Voices of countless others, all pleading, all trapped, all lost. I realized with sickening clarity what Hazel meant. Hidden Cove was never a paradise. It was a trap, a place that spoke in whispers, luring visitors to their doom. My grip began slipping, Katie's screams fading, the sea rushing forward to claim me. Just before darkness swallowed me, a single voice pierced the chaos clearly, softly mocking. "Welcome home." The icy grip around my ankle dragged me relentlessly toward the whispering sea. Panic surged through every nerve in my body, adrenaline fueling my desperate fight. Kata's frantic screams echoed, distant and distorted, muffled beneath the haunting chorus of whispers that wrapped around us like an impenetrable fog. Sand scraped my skin as I clawed wildly, fingers bleeding, nails tearing against sharp shells hidden beneath the sand. My heart thundered painfully in my chest. Just inches from the dark water, Katie summoned a strength neither of us knew she had, pulling with all her might. Suddenly my foot slipped free, the invisible grip dissolving instantly, leaving only a faint chill where it had touched my skin. We collapsed backward onto the beach, gasping for air, chests heaving. The whispers retreated, fading slightly into the night, replaced again by the rhythmic hush of waves. But now that soothing sound felt ominous, filled with hidden threats. What was that? Katie sobbed, clinging desperately to my shaking arm. Before I could answer, a weak voice called out from down the shore, hoarse and desperate. Katie, is that you? Dome. Our hearts stopped simultaneously. Evan's voice was unmistakable, yet terrifyingly strained. Evan! Katie yelled, standing shakily, her legs trembling beneath her. Where are you? There was silence again. Then faintly, Evan's voice returned, drifting from a nearby cluster of jagged rocks protruding from the surf. I don't know. It's dark. So cold here. My chest tightened painfully. Hold on, Evan, we're coming. We stumbled forward, cautious and terrified, the sand shifting treacherously beneath our feet. As we approached the rocks, our flashlight beams revealed an opening, a dark, narrow cave entrance just wide enough to crawl through. Evan? Katie's voice shook violently, echoing softly inside the cave. There was a long pause, then Evan's faint reply. I'm inside. Hurry. Dread settled deep in my bones, but I ignored every instinct screaming at me to run. Instead, we squeezed through the entrance, our bodies scraping painfully against sharp stone walls. The air inside felt thick, damp, and stale. Our lights flickered weakly, casting distorted shadows across glistening rock surfaces that seemed almost alive. We crawled forward in near silence, our breathing loud and ragged, hearts pounding furiously. Suddenly the passage opened into a small cavern. Evan lay in the center, curled on the ground, pale and shivering. Evan! Katie rushed toward him, collapsing at his side. He raised his head weakly, eyes hollow with exhaustion. Katie, don't. Before he could finish, the cavern trembled slightly, a deep groan echoing through the stone. We exchanged terrified glances as the walls around us seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting slowly, as if alive. Evan, I urged desperately, pulling at his arm. We have to get out now. He shook his head slowly, face haunted. I can't leave. What do you mean? Katie sobbed, pulling at his other arm, frantic. Get up, please. We have to go. I tried, he whispered, voice breaking, but they're inside me now. My heart froze. Who? Evan stared blankly past us. All of them. They got Sean. They're coming for you next. A loud, wet sound echoed around us, and we turned sharply. The cavern wall behind Evan shifted grotesquely, oozing dark liquid that pooled slowly at our feet. Shapes moved within the wall, dozens of faces, contorted in pain, pressing desperately against the stone, their expressions twisted in eternal agony. Katie screamed, stumbling backward. Evan reached out weakly, gripping my hand. They won't let me go, he gasped. Please don't leave me. But his eyes were no longer Evan's. Darkness swirled within them, shadows dancing, claiming him completely. I stumbled back in horror. Katie, run. We turned to flee, but the cavern entrance had vanished, replaced by solid stone. Panicked, we clawed frantically at the walls, screaming desperately, but no escape existed. Only the shifting, breathing walls pressing closer. Then from the shadows, another figure emerged slowly, Sean, pale and lifeless, his eyes filled with dark whispers. Behind him stood countless others, silent and ghostly, faces twisted with sorrow. You're one of us now, Sean whispered gently, voice hollow and unfamiliar. You can't leave. Katie fell to her knees, sobbing. I turned, my mind racing desperately. Why? What is this place? Sean stared emptily. It's Hidden Cove. It takes people, traps them here, feeds on us. The whispers lure visitors, promising safety, beauty, then trapping them forever. Then we fight. I gasped defiantly, stepping forward. "We won't give in." Sean shook his head sadly. "You can't fight what you can't see." Suddenly pain shot through my chest, a cold, searing agony, unlike anything I'd known. I looked down, horrified. Black tendrils emerged from the cavern walls, sinking into my skin, wrapping around me slowly, pulling me into the stone. Katie screamed, but she was already sinking, arms outstretched, eyes wide with terror. Our fingers brushed briefly, then slipped apart. As the stone consumed me, my consciousness faded slowly into whispers. I joined countless others, trapped in eternal torment, begging silently for freedom. Days later, Hazel stood at the shoreline, watching silently as police investigated the abandoned cabins. They found no evidence, no signs of struggle, no bodies, nothing. An officer approached her, baffled. "You've lived here your whole life. What do you think happened to them?" Hazel stared out over the whispering waves, her eyes clouded with grief. "They didn't listen," she murmured softly, turning away. "They never do." Story 2, The Vanishing Campground. There's a campground in upstate Vermont that's no longer on the map. Not because it burned down or was abandoned. Not because it was bought out by some millionaire building a ski resort. Number it's gone because people started disappearing. The story I'm about to tell happened to me and my cousins 2 summers ago. We used to go camping together every July. A tradition that started when we were kids and somehow never stopped, even as we got older, busier, and more cynical. That year, we chose a spot deep in the Green Mountains, somewhere we hadn't camped before. It was called Crescent Pines Campground. We found it on a strange, half-broken website that hadn't been updated in years. The photos were grainy and watermarked, and the last review was dated 2006. But the trees looked beautiful, the lake looked quiet, and we were always into spooky, off-the-grid places. So, we went. It was me, my cousin Rachel, and our friend Dev. We got there mid-afternoon. The place looked exactly like the pictures. An old wooden ranger booth, unmanned, cracked pavement paths leading to spread-out, overgrown lots, and a large, stagnant lake glinting between the trees. But something was off. No birds, no bugs. Even the wind was strangely muted. It felt like stepping into a painting, one with the volume turned all the way down. Still, we pitched our tents, roasted marshmallows, played cards. By nightfall, it was just us, the stars, and the woods. That's when we heard the first sound. Not an animal, not wind. It was a voice, a child's voice, soft and playful. "Come find me." We froze. Dev turned off the Bluetooth speaker. We sat there, ears straining. "Hello?" Rachel called out. "Is someone there?" No response. But the voice came again from deeper in the woods. Clearer this time. "I'm hiding." Dev shined his flashlight toward the sound, but the beam hit only trees. No footsteps, no rustling, just silence after the voice. "Probably a prank," he said nervously. "There's probably some weird loner kid out here trying to scare campers." I wanted to believe that, but something felt wrong. The voice was too perfect, like a recording played in open air. We tried to shake it off, turned the music back on, and stayed up until after midnight. No more voices. That night, though, I had a nightmare. I dreamed I was walking through the woods near the lake. The trees were warped and bending inward like they were whispering. In the center of the clearing was a boy, maybe 7 or 8, in old-fashioned clothes. Suspenders, a collared shirt, barefoot. He smiled at me and said, "I knew you'd come." Then I woke up. But something wasn't right. The air was cold, and the tent zipper was open, wide open. I sat up and looked outside. Rachel's tent was still zipped. So was Dev's. But the fire pit was smoldering like someone had stirred it just minutes ago. The air smelled like sulfur. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Day 2. In the morning, I didn't say anything. Rachel was already awake and making coffee over the portable burner. Dev was skipping rocks at the lake. But that's when Rachel looked up at me and asked, "Did you hear the kid last night?" I stopped. "You did too?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I didn't dream it." Dev walked over with a scowl. "There's something even weirder. The lake looks wrong." We followed him to the waterline. He pointed at our footprints from the day before, now gone. The mud was smooth, untouched, like no one had been near the water in days. Then Dev said, "And where's the dock?" I blinked. There had been a small wooden dock. We even sat on it for lunch. Now it was gone. We scoured the shoreline, but there was no sign of wood, no posts, no debris, just calm, dark water, and that same suffocating silence. That's when we tried to leave. We packed quickly, nervously laughing it off. We'd tell ourselves it was just an overgrown site, maybe maintained badly, nothing supernatural, no weird voices, no vanishing docks. But as we drove back toward the main road, we hit something I didn't expect. Fog. Thick, impenetrable fog that rolled in so fast it looked like a wall. We stopped the car. GPS lost signal. Phones died, not battery drained, but dead black screens that wouldn't reboot. Rachel started to panic. "We're just going in circles." I didn't want to believe her. But she was right. The road twisted and curved back in a way I'd never seen before. Every path we took, left, right, even reverse, seemed to bring us back to the same clearing, to the campground entrance. Dev stepped out and started yelling at the woods. "Hey, anyone out there? What do you want?" The forest answered. 100 whispering voices all around us. Men, women, children, soft, layered, unintelligible. Then one clear voice, the child, again. "Don't leave, not yet." That night, we didn't sleep. We stayed in the car, headlights pointed at the trees. The air felt charged, like the world was holding its breath. At exactly 3:15 a.m., every tree around us bent toward the car. Not from wind, they moved. And in the rearview mirror, Dev saw someone standing behind the car. Dev screamed, jerking the wheel forward. The tires spun against gravel as the headlights swept the trees. But when I turned around, there was no one behind the car. Just darkness, solid, impenetrable black. Still, we didn't stop driving. We drove without direction, just trying to keep moving. Eventually, the fog lifted. The GPS returned. Cell bars flickered back. But what appeared on the screen didn't make sense. We were 2 miles from Crescent Pines. 2 miles in the opposite direction from where we'd started. "We drove in circles all night," Rachel whispered, "and somehow we're still here." I told them we needed to keep driving, get out of the forest. No bathroom stops, no side roads, just out. And that's what we did. Hours passed before we reached a small gas station near Montpellier. We pulled in, bleary-eyed, barely speaking. The attendant was older, kind face, watched us with quiet curiosity as we stumbled inside. Rachel asked if she knew how to get back to the highway. He gave us directions. Then Dev, exhausted and shaking, asked him something strange. "You ever hear of a place called Crescent Pines?" The woman at the register, who had been silent until then, dropped her cup. The man froze. His eyes narrowed. "Where'd you hear that name?" We told him. Sort of. Enough to explain we'd camped there. That weird things happened, that it didn't feel real. The woman leaned in and said softly, "That place hasn't existed for 40 years. Rachel scoffed, assuming she meant it had closed. but the man corrected her. Story 3. The Lake Only Locals Fear. It started with a dare. A stupid end-of-summer kind of dare. The kind that kids grow out of. But we apparently hadn't. We were all in our early 20s, home from college, or still figuring out what came next. That night, it was me, Tyler, Nate, and Jamie. 4 longtime friends looking for one last thrill before life came crashing back in the form of work, responsibilities, or school loans. We met up like we always did. Cheap gas station snacks, a case of beer none of us liked, and way too much bravado. "Let's do something we haven't done before," Tyler said. Jamie smirked. "Like what? Break into the water tower again?" But Nate had already been scrolling on his phone. "You guys ever heard of Lake Grayson?" The name dropped like a cold pebble into the center of the conversation. I had heard of it. We all had. But not in the way you hear about places you want to visit. Lake Grayson was the kind of name your parents said quietly, then waved away when you asked more. The kind of place mentioned in those weird town Facebook groups that talked about local legends and creepy things that happened once, a long time ago. "Come on," Nate insisted. "There's nothing there, just an old lake. Says it's public access." "Yeah," Tyler said, "and no one ever goes there. That's what makes it fun." I should have left right then, but I didn't, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. We got to Lake Grayson just after midnight. It wasn't far, maybe 25 minutes outside of town, down a narrow gravel road that wound through thick trees and ended it at a rusted-out parking sign barely standing. The lake didn't have a dock, or a beach, or anything, really. Just black water surrounded by gnarled trees and thick fog that rolled in from the shoreline like it had been waiting for us. "Creepy as hell," Jamie muttered. But no one turned back. We brought headlamps, flashlights, even one of those little lanterns for ambiance. The beer stayed in the car. None of us were dumb enough to drink here. Tyler brought the canoe. He always had it strapped to his roof, ready to go. We unloaded it slowly, the aluminum echoing with every step we took. The lake was calm, too calm. No bugs, no birds, just a weird silence that settled into your bones. I remember asking, "Why is it so quiet?" Jamie shrugged. "Probably nothing lives here anymore." We didn't question that. We didn't question anything. The plan was simple. Take the canoe out to the middle of the lake, float around, see how long we could last before someone chickened out. Nate and Jamie got in first, then Tyler, then me. It felt heavy. The air, the boat, the water beneath us. There was a weight to everything, not physical, just wrong. Halfway across the lake, Tyler turned off his flashlight. "Let your eyes adjust," he said, "just for a minute." The darkness swallowed us instantly. We sat there, 4 silhouettes floating in black water, with nothing but the sound of slow ripples against the canoe. No one spoke, until Jamie whispered, "Guys, do you see that?" Across the lake, on the shore, stood a figure, not moving, not waving, just standing. "I thought no one came here," Nate whispered. "They don't," Tyler said. "There's no houses out here, no cabins, just trees." We all froze, eyes locked on that figure. Then it stepped forward, into the lake. No splash, no sound, just slow, gliding steps. It didn't walk into the water. It became part of it. I grabbed my paddle. "We need to go." But Tyler was staring. "No, it's just some guy. We're overreacting." That's when the figure disappeared beneath the water. Not sank, vanished. Panic set in. Nate paddled hard. Jamie dropped his flashlight. I was shaking. We didn't speak until we got back to shore. And when we did, all any of us could say was, "What the hell was that?" We didn't see anyone else. Didn't hear a car. Didn't find footprints. just packed up and left. By the time we got home, it was 3:11 a.m., and then the nightmares started. It's been 2 weeks since that night. Nate doesn't answer his phone. Jamie's been posting weird, blurry photos of lakes on Instagram, but not our lake. Random ones. Some don't even seem real. Tyler? He started sleepwalking. His mom caught him standing in the backyard 3 nights ago, whispering something about the thing in the water. And me? I keep dreaming about the lake. But it's not what we saw that night. It's what's under the surface. Hands, hundreds of them, reaching up, scratching, pulling, and always the same voice whispering just before I wake up. You never left. I didn't tell anyone about the nightmares at first. They felt too specific, too targeted. Each night, I'd find myself standing in the middle of Lake Grayson, the water still, too thick, like syrup. My body wouldn't move, but I could see the shore, just barely, through a thick veil of fog. Then the whispering would start. You never left, always the same voice. Male, but hollow, like it was speaking through the lungs of something already dead. I'd wake up, drenched in sweat, shivering, and convinced my lungs were full of water. On the 3rd night, I woke up with dirt on my feet. The 4th, I found a damp patch on my bed. Not sweat. It smelled like algae, like that same still water. I was losing it. But I wasn't alone. That morning, I drove to Jamie's place. His apartment was dark, curtains drawn, locks bolted. I knocked for almost 5 minutes before he opened the door, shirtless, eyes sunken, shaking. Have you been dreaming about the lake? I asked. He nodded. It calls me now. I thought he was being dramatic, until he said, Tyler's gone. I didn't believe him, but then I saw the texts, dozens of them, all from Tyler's mom. Where are you? Call me. I'm scared. He'd vanished 3 nights ago. Walked out barefoot in the middle of the night. Phone left behind. No note, no sign of struggle. Security footage showed him walking down the street. Calm, purposeful, like he knew exactly where he was going. Nate hadn't answered in days either. We drove to Nate's house. His car was still there. The front door unlocked. Inside was worse than anything I could have imagined. All the windows were covered in tin foil and towels. His walls were covered in maps of lakes. Some real, some fabricated. Drawings of eyes in the water, of long, pale arms reaching through canoes. But the worst part was the mirror in the hallway. Written in condensation like someone had breathed it onto the surface, was one sentence, "Look beneath." And below that, in the carpet, was a damp trail of footprints leading out the back door. That night, Jamie begged me not to leave him alone. So I stayed. We drank coffee and watched trash TV like we used to. For a while it almost felt normal, until the power went out, at 3:11 a.m. exactly. Jamie stood up, eyes wide. It's happening again. I grabbed a flashlight. The house was quiet, no movement, just the sound of the wind, or maybe breath, pressing against the windows. Then came the tap, tap, tap at the front door. I froze. Jamie whispered, "Don't answer it." But the tapping didn't stop. We hid in the bathroom. He was crying, shaking, repeating the same phrase over and over. They want us to come back. They said we never left. They said we brought something back with us. That's when I heard the water, running down the hallway, but the pipes weren't on. I opened the door. There was water pooling in the living room, clear, cold, still. In the center of the room, the rug was floating, and beneath it, I swear to you, the floor wasn't wood anymore. It was rippling like a lake. Jamie screamed. He ran out the back door barefoot and vanished into the woods behind his house. I chased after him, but by the time I got outside, he was gone, Just gone. No footsteps, no broken branches, just fog and water. The grass was wet, too wet, like it had just rained in that one exact spot. That was a week ago. No one's seen Jamie or Tyler or Nate since. I tried reporting them. The cops just shrugged and said they were probably off partying somewhere. But I know better, because I keep dreaming of the lake. But it's not a dream anymore. I drove back there once. I had to see it again. Had to know if it was still calling me. And when I got to the shore, there was something waiting. A canoe, empty, floating, and inside it, 4 life vests, one for each of us, but only mine was wet. And as I turned to leave, I heard them, the voices, my friends, calling from under the water, begging me to come back, because they think I left. But maybe I didn't. Maybe I never did. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. These weren't just scary stories. They were true accounts of people who lived through something no one could explain. And if there's one thing we've learned tonight, it's that the real horror doesn't wait for Halloween. Sometimes it shows up in the heat of summer, when your guard is down. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We post new, true horror stories every week. And don't forget to share this video with a friend who thinks summer is safe. Because after hearing these stories, they might think twice about that next road trip, lake swim, or midnight walk. Until next time, stay safe and stay in the light.